Welcome to my channel, where we discuss everything and all things politics, economy, and development in Nigeria and around the world. Now, the Southeast geopolitical zone have a socio-cultural organization, Ohanaeze Ndigbo, which also encompasses some parts of River State and Delta State, who belong to Ohanaeze Ndigbo. Now, Ohanaeze Ndigbo, under the leadership of Chief Emmanuel Iwuanyanwu, has in recent time been very frontal in calling for the restructuring of the country. And Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the President of Nigeria, has been an advocate of restructuring before he became president. And in the recent stakeholders meeting in Enugu, Ohanaeze talked about the fact that the country should be restructured and that the zone, the Southeast, should be allowed to build their own seaport, have another state, so that you can have equality of states across the zones. You know that Southeast has the least number of states among the 6 geopolitical zones. Other zones have 60 states, 6 states each. Only Southeast has 5. And then Northwest has 7 states. So they demanded that an extra state be created in the Southeast. But the most important takeaway from that their resolution was the need for a seaport. I mean, now they are looking at economic development of the region. And I agree, in my mind, that restructuring, Southeast having the opportunity to build their own seaport, just as you have the geometric power plant in Aba now, will go a long way. In fact, it will be far more beneficial to the Southeast than even Southeast producing the president. Okay? Because I have looked at Nigeria's administration over the years. Despite all the fight about the presidency, and don't get me wrong, I want the Southeast to produce president. I was and I continue to be among those who supported that the Southeast ought to have been the president of Nigeria right now, instead of Bola Ahmed Tinubu from the Southwest. Why did I say that? Southwest since 1999 produced Obasanjo as president for 8 years. Southwest produced Professor Yemi Osibanjo, vice president, for 8 years. That means Southwest produced presidency. In Aso Rock Villa, they produced 16 years. Yet, Southeast has never produced any president or vice president since 1999. So I was among those who insisted, and I still insist, that it is an injustice for Bola Ahmed Tinubu to be president right now. That presidency ought to have gone to the Southeast for fairness, justice, and equity, even in tune with the federal character of Nigeria. That's my position. It remains so. And you can see that if you are a follower of this channel, you know that I support Peter Obi. This channel supports Peter Obi. His antecedent, and not just that this channel supports Peter Obi. Peter Obi is the best candidate best presidential material in Nigeria alive today, P2B. And I wanted him to break the jinx and become president. Unfortunately, they rigged the 2023 presidential election, which he was poised to win. Okay, so I'm not saying this, I'm saying going forward in this video lightly. I'm not saying that the presidency is not important. The reason why presidency is important is to give a sense of belonging to all sections of this country. No section of this country has a monopoly of producing president, or they are the most knowledgeable in the art of presidency. Every part of this country can produce a president. Okay? So, that being said, but producing a president right now in Nigeria, as far as I can see it, is important. But far more important is a restructured Nigeria, so that various regions, various states can develop according to its own capacity. So that states that want to have power plants can have power plants. States that want to build their own seaport will have their own seaport. A zone can decide to have railways transport connecting every town. For example, Southeast leaders, governors can decide that all the state capitals in the Southeast must be connected by rail. That's a development trajectory that could be followed. Now, that will bring more development faster to the country than where the president comes from. So that's why I did say that restructuring Nigeria is far more important than producing the president. In fact, if you restructure Nigeria now, you will discover how irrelevant the presidency could become. Now, let us look at it by facts. Since 1999, and we will even go further than that, since 1999, we have had some presidents. President Olusegun Obasanjo was president for 8 years. Yar'Adua was president for 3.5 years, because Yar'Adua was sworn in on May 29, 2007. He died on May 10, or thereabout, 2010. He died in 2010. So he has spent about 3.5 years. That was now completed by the then Vice President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan when Yar'Adua died. After Yar'Adua, South produced president in the person of Goodluck Ebele Jonathan for 4 years. If you join the 1 year or thereabouts of that he completed for Yar'Adua, you can say South produced president for 5 years, and he is from Bayelsa State. Buhari took over from Jonathan and spent 8 years as president. Now, if you go and check Human Development Index in Nigeria, despite the fact that Katsina produced 2 presidents, Yar'Adua and Buhari, it doesn't mean that Yar'Adua or that Katsina is any better in Human Development Index than any other part of Nigeria. In fact, after the 8 years of Buhari from Katsina, Katsina is bleeding now more than ever before. Even while Buhari was there, Katsina was bleeding from banditry. About 12 local governments in Katsina State are literally controlled by bandits, even as I talk to you now. So you can therefore see that Buhari becoming president did not help the average Katsina man in any way. It didn't help the average Northwest person, because Katsina is in Northwest. It didn't stop banditry from ravaging that zone. So you can now see that producing presidents doesn't really make much difference. It's just for the hype and for the fact of the seeming equitable distribution of power. That's it. It didn't make any difference in the life of Katsina people, and it has not made any difference. Even though he attracted the university and attracted all that, at the end of the day, 12 states, 12 local governments are under the control of bandits. They call them the frontline states. That's what the governor calls them. Frontline states. People are killed. Farmlands taken over by bandits in Katsina State. So you see that producing the president, despite all the fight for it, doesn't really impact the people of that area as much as it affects, as it benefits the family of the person. Like the Buhari family, they are made for life, no doubt about it. But what about the zone? Because when he was there, the people of Northwest will be beating their chests. Buhari is our brother. At what expense? Look at Obasanjo. Obasanjo was president for 8 years. That doesn't mean that Owo, where he came from, has developed better than any other place, or that he attracted more foreign investors than any other place, or that Owo is having 24 hours electricity and the other parts of Nigeria are not having it. You can look at Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. He was president for 5 years. You cannot say because he was president for 5 years that Bayelsa, an oil producing state, was better off than it is now. In fact, Bayelsa was even worse as at the time Jonathan left office. But yet, somebody from South can pride himself, say, yes, we have produced the president. But how does this impact the life of the people? It doesn't. The only thing, it has empowered Jonathan and his family and those who are close to him. The same is happening right now that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is president. Because he's president doesn't mean that in his alleged original village in Osun State is going to be better developed than any other part of Nigeria, or his new state where he eventually became governor, Lagos State, is going to be better developed than any other part of Nigeria. We know that Lagos has been there since 1914 as the capital of Nigeria, and by its geographical location, being a settlement near the sea, it will attract development. If you go and study the history of development, you find out that the major commercial centers around the world develop around seas. It's a natural occurrence. From Lagos to New York to London, all this, they have access to the sea. So Lagos was privileged by its geographic location. But even at that, because Bola Ahmed Tinubu is president, doesn't mean that Lagos is going to be any much different from the rest of the country. It doesn't mean that Lagos will be enjoying 24 hours light and others will not. So now you can see that producing the president does not make the people from the president's state or even local government better than other Nigerians in terms of access to infrastructural development and all kinds of development, human index development, and what have you. So that said, that's why I support what Ohanaeze is doing, calling for restructuring. And this restructuring is not a rocket science. It is things that can be easily handled, even by executive orders by the president and then by the National Assembly. It's just about devolution of power. It's about devolution of power. And you see that it will accelerate development across the country. You can imagine what it will mean if Southeast could have a seaport. Because there are statistics to show that over 80% of the containers coming into Nigeria from Lagos Seaport, eventually end up in Southeast. So if Southeast is a major catalyst in the generation of imported containers and goods and services and what have you, it will make economic sense for them to have a seaport closer home. One, it will preserve the roads, because right now, all these trailers that are carrying the containers from Lagos to Southeast are part of the reasons why the roads used to spoil on time. So, but you can imagine if the seaports are developed in the Southeast, serving the one that is closer to Imo State is done, the one closer to Abia State is done. You know what it means. And even the Onitsha River Port, all those working, you find out that the goods will come directly into the region and you wouldn't have to suffer the roads by trailers moving in containers from the sea to the Southeast. And you can see it will accelerate development. It will increase productivity, because already we know that Southeast is a major hub for manufacturing. And Southeast is a major stakeholder in the pharmaceuticals. So all these things shows that if you restructure, it will benefit the people. Even the Southeast that has not produced president since 1999, a restructured Nigeria will be of benefit to them as it will be to other sections of the country. Because it means that every section of this country will play on areas in which it has comparative advantage and build on it and develop it for the good of the country and for the good of that particular zone. That's why I support Chief Emmanuel Iwuanyanwu. I support Ohanaeze that restructuring is the way to go. That restructuring is far more important than where the president comes from. And it's a fact. If you restructure, you bring more development. But under this presidential system we have, your zone can produce presidents. It doesn't really mean anything. The only thing it just gives you psychological satisfaction. And it also shows that it gives a sense of belonging to all parts of the country. That every part of this country can produce a president and it should be so. I'm among those who say that the presidency of Nigeria should be zoned and it should be written in the constitution. All this idea of leaving it to political parties to decide is very infantile. In Switzerland and many other countries in Europe, it is stipulated they rotate the presidency. So we can do it, rotate the president. But rotating it is just for fairness, justice, and equity. But that doesn't mean that it's the thing that will bring development. What will bring development to Nigeria is restructuring. It is not where the president comes from. But where the president comes from must be democratized, so that no section of this country should have monopoly of producing the president. Everybody can produce it. Everybody should produce it. There's no part of this country that don't have people that can be president. But for development of this country, which is far more important than where the president comes from, we need to encourage and support restructuring. We need to support Ohanaeze. We need to support the Middle Belt Forum, the Afenifere, and all those who are calling for restructuring. Because a restructured Nigeria will give us more development, better development than where the president comes from. I know that Southeast is looking for presidency, and they are looking for it just for fairness, justice, and equity. Because when Southeast produces a president, except it's somebody like Peter Obi, it may not be any different from the other presidents. But if it is Peter Obi, I can assure you that there will be development nationwide. But what will bring sustainable development is a restructured Nigeria, and not just basically because a good president emerged through Peter Obi. But if you want to have sustainable development, we have to restructure the country. So Ohanaeze is right. Asking for the right to have seaport in the Southeast is part of the restructuring agenda. If it is approved, fine and good, it will help to accelerate development. So restructuring is far more important than where the president comes from. Even ahead of 2027 election, restructuring is far more important than who becomes the president. Now, the ball is in the court of the National Assembly and Bola Ahmed Tinubu to do something about restructuring Nigeria in order to accelerate development. And I mean sustainable development, not just ordinary development. Restructuring will give Nigeria sustainable development. Thank you for watching this video. And if you are new to my channel, you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel, hit the subscription button, hit the notification bell. When you subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell, anytime I have a new video, you'll be among the first to know. God bless you. And please don't forget to like this video, because when you like it, Google will rank it high and recommend it for more people. Thank you, and God bless you and yours.